We walk into love believing it will heal us. We believe the right person will fix our scars, fill our emptiness, and finally make us whole. But here's the painful truth. If you don't understand yourself first, every relationship you enter will feel like a battlefield. The mistake isn't falling in love. It's falling without self-awareness. Shetty once said, "We don't see people as they are. We see them as we are." And that is where it begins. If you're broken inside, you'll see relationships through the lens of your wounds. If you're insecure, you'll read rejection where there is none. If you're lost, you'll expect someone else to give you direction. And when they can't, the love you thought would save you starts to suffocate you. Picture a man, still bleeding from his last breakup, rushing into the arms of someone new. He tells himself this is healing, but really, it's hiding. Every smile from her feels like medicine, every text a lifeline. But the moment she pulls away, even slightly, panic takes over. Why? Because she's not just a partner. She's become his only proof of worth. That is the hidden trap. Love built on dependency is not love at all. It's survival disguised as romance. Now imagine another man, equally heartbroken, equally bruised. But instead of running into the next distraction, he sits with his pain. He faces the silence. He learns what parts of himself contributed to the collapse, what fears keep haunting him, what patterns he keeps repeating. He doesn't rush to escape the loneliness. He studies it. And in that self-awareness, he builds something stronger than the illusion of completion. He builds a foundation. This man will love again, but when he does, his love won't be a cry for rescue. It will be an overflow of strength. Shetty reminds us, the way we see love is often shaped by the love we lacked. Think about that. If you grew up with absence, you chase intensity. If you grew up with chaos, you confuse it with passion. If you grew up unseen, you beg for attention, thinking it is affection. Without awareness of these wounds, you walk blindly into patterns that repeat your past. And each time, you wonder why it all falls apart. Here's the contrast that cuts deep. Relationships don't just mirror love, they mirror your unhealed parts. That's why someone can trigger rage in you with a single word. That's why a breakup can feel like death. That's why you can be in a crowded room, even in someone's arms, and still feel completely alone. Because the war isn't outside, it's inside. And no relationship can save you from a battle you refuse to fight. Jay once said, "We think we're looking for a partner, but really, we're looking for ourselves." The number one relationship mistake is believing someone else will find you when you haven't even found yourself. You enter with masks, with hidden fears, with wounds disguised as charm. And when those masks crack, when your wounds surface, the relationship crumbles under the weight of everything you never faced. Think about the cycle. You meet, you fall, it feels electric. But soon, insecurities show up. You become possessive, jealous, demanding. You expect them to heal your old wounds, but they have wounds of their own. Love becomes pressure. Pressure becomes resentment. Resentment becomes distance. And distance becomes heartbreak, again, and again, and again. Different faces, same ending, until you realize the pattern isn't them, it's you. And this is not condemnation, it's liberation. Because if the pattern is you, the power to change is also you. The heartbreaks are not punishments, they are lessons. The silence after someone leaves is not emptiness, it's a classroom. Self-awareness is the first step to breaking the cycle. Without it, love becomes a prison. With it, love becomes freedom. But here's the warning: if you skip this step, if you keep running from yourself into the arms of others, every relationship will feel heavier than the last. You'll keep expecting someone to carry what only you can heal. And no matter how deeply they care, they will eventually collapse under the weight of your unhealed pain. Jay reminds us, when you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. That is the cost of ignoring self-awareness. You don't just destroy yourself, you destroy the love you were desperate to protect. So what's the answer? You must choose the harder path. To sit with the silence. To ask yourself uncomfortable questions. To face your reflection without filters. To learn where your pain comes from and why you keep handing it to others. That's how you break the pattern. That's how you prepare yourself for a love that doesn't feel like chains, but like wings. Because here's the suspense. The number one relationship mistake is not choosing the wrong partner. It's entering love without knowing yourself. And if you don't fix that, the cycle will never end. But once you begin to see yourself clearly, you unlock the possibility of love that feels like growth, not survival. And yet, even self-awareness isn't enough. Because once you see yourself clearly, you'll uncover the weight of expectations you've been placing on love. And unless you shift those expectations, awareness alone won't save you. That's where we go next. We all walk into love with a picture in our heads. We expect someone to complete us, to heal our brokenness, to fill the emptiness we've carried for years. But here's the truth. Expectations can turn even the purest love into a prison. What begins as romance quickly becomes pressure, because no one was built to carry the weight of another person's unhealed soul. Shetty once said, "Why expect love to cure our loneliness, when in reality, love only amplifies what's already inside us?" That is the mask of expectations. We put it on thinking it will make us feel secure, but it only hides the wounds that will later unravel everything. Picture a man entering a new relationship after heartbreak. At first, everything feels magical, but slowly he begins to expect more than what's healthy. Every unanswered text feels like rejection. Every moment of space feels like abandonment. His partner doesn't just become someone he loves. She becomes his lifeline, his therapist, his proof of worth. And without meaning to, he suffocates her with the weight of those expectations. What was once love now feels like a cage. Now imagine another man who carries himself differently. He enters love aware of his own wounds, aware of what he can give and what he must heal alone. Instead of expecting his partner to be his savior, he invites her to be his companion. Instead of demanding reassurance, he offers trust. Instead of waiting for love to fill his emptiness, he fills it himself and shares the overflow. The difference isn't luck, it's mindset. One man demands, the other contributes. One drains, the other uplifts. Jay reminds us, love is not about possession. Love is about appreciation. But expectations twist appreciation into entitlement. Instead of saying, Thank you for being here. We say, you should be here. Instead of saying, I'm grateful you love me, we say, you must prove you love me. And the irony is cruel. The more we demand proof, the less love feels like freedom, and the more it begins to suffocate. Think of how often relationships break, not because love disappears, but because it drowns under unmet expectations. We expect constant attention, constant validation, constant assurance. But no human being can meet those demands forever. The harder we squeeze, the faster love slips away. Here's the contrast that should shake you. Imagine two people in love. In one relationship, both see their partner as a solution to their problems. They lean on each other not out of love, but out of desperation. When one fails to deliver, resentment grows. In the other relationship, both see their partner as an addition, not a completion. They stand strong as individuals, but when they come together, they multiply each other's strength. That is love without the mask of expectation. That is love as liberation, not obligation. Jay said, don't let someone else's presence become the only way you feel whole. Because if your wholeness depends on them, your happiness will collapse the moment they leave. And here's the deeper danger. Expectations don't just damage the relationship, they damage you. They make you addicted to a love that cannot survive without constant reassurance. They make you doubt your worth every time your partner fails to meet the impossible standard you've set. But here's the twist. Expectations aren't always spoken. Sometimes they live quietly, hidden in the corners of your mind. You don't say them out loud, but you feel them every time your partner doesn't guess your needs. You expect them to read your thoughts, to heal your past, to know your wounds without you ever speaking. And when they don't, you call it disappointment, when in reality, it's unfairness. Love is not mind reading, it's communication. Without it, the silence between two people grows louder than their words. Jay reminds us, we shouldn't expect perfection in others when we're still learning to perfect ourselves. Yet that is exactly what most of us do. We demand a flawless partner while bringing our own flaws unchecked. We seek unconditional love while offering conditions. We want peace while carrying chaos. Until we take off the mask of expectations, every relationship will collapse under its weight. So what's the way out? You shift the focus. You stop asking, what can I get? And start asking, what can I give? You stop expecting your partner to fill your void, and you begin filling it yourself. You stop demanding proof, and you start offering presence. Love thrives when it is not a transaction, but a gift. But here's the suspense you need to hear. Lowering expectations doesn't mean lowering standards. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or neglect. It means recognizing the difference between needs and demands. It means building a love that grows from choice, not pressure. And to do that, you must embrace the forgotten principle. Shetty often points to love is not about getting, it's about giving. And if you miss this principle, no amount of awareness will save you. Because even if you see your wounds, even if you try to protect your peace, love will still feel like pressure unless you shift from expectation to contribution. That's where we go next. At the heart of every failed relationship lies one core truth. We love to receive, not to give. We entered love like customers in a store, asking, "What can you give me? How can you fix me? How can you prove you love me?" But love is not a transaction. It's not a contract of needs. Love, in its purest form, is contribution. It's service. It's choosing to give without keeping score. Shetty once said, "The highest form of love is to want the best for someone, even if that best doesn't include you." That line breaks the illusion wide open. Because most of us love conditionally. We love when we're loved back. We give when we receive in return. But true love isn't conditional. It's intentional. It doesn't depend on what you get. It thrives on what you choose to give. Picture two people. The first wakes up each day asking, "Why aren't you texting me more? Why don't you say you love me the way I do? Why aren't you meeting my needs?" Their love feels like a demand, a checklist that must constantly be ticked off. The second person wakes up asking, "How can I make today lighter for you? How can I remind you that you're valued? How can I add joy to your life?" One relationship drains, the other fuels. The difference is giving vs. getting. But let's be clear, giving is not about losing yourself. Giving is not being a doormat. Giving is not abandoning your own needs. Jay explains it best. When you love someone, you don't lose yourself. You find more of yourself in the act of giving. Real love expands you. It doesn't erase you. It creates abundance instead of emptiness. Think about the relationships that inspire us most. Parents who sacrifice for their children. Partners who lift each other in hardship. Friends who show up when the world walks out. What makes them powerful isn't what they demand, but what they contribute. That's why those bonds last. They're built on the strength of giving, not the fragility of expectation. Now contrast that with the fragile love we see everywhere. A man who expects his partner to reassure him every hour that she still cares. A woman who expects her partner to heal wounds from relationships he never caused. Both believe they're in love, but they're actually in need. And need can never sustain love. It only consumes it. Jay reminds us, love is not what we say. Love is what we do. Words are easy. Promises are cheap. But when you show up, when you listen, when you serve, not because you have to, but because you want to, that's when love becomes real. And here's the paradox. When you give, you actually end up receiving more. Not because you demanded it, but because giving creates an atmosphere where love multiplies. When you pour into someone without keeping score, they feel safe enough to pour back. That cycle of abundance is what makes relationships unbreakable. But here's the danger. If you hear this wrong, you'll think love means giving endlessly while receiving nothing. That's not love. That's sacrifice without reciprocity. The truth is, giving only works when it comes from strength, not desperation. If you're giving in hopes of earning love, you're still trying to get. But if you're giving because you already feel full, then your love becomes a gift, not a gamble. Picture a man who has healed, who has learned to love himself first. When he enters a relationship, he doesn't need someone to validate his worth. He already knows it. So his love is free, not needy. He gives because he chooses, not because he fears losing. And because his love comes from overflow, he never feels drained. This is what makes him magnetic. This is why his relationships thrive. Jay says, fall in love with giving, and you'll never run out of love. That is the forgotten principle most people miss. Love isn't about being served. It's about serving. It isn't about possession. It's about contribution. And the moment you make that shift, every relationship changes. But here's the suspense: giving alone is not enough. Because if you give without respect for yourself, you'll give away your dignity, your energy, your joy. And that's not love, that's loss. The final piece of this puzzle is learning how to give while standing tall in self-respect. Because only then does love become unshakable. Only then does love turn from fragile to forever. Love built on giving is powerful. But love without self-respect is dangerous. Because when you give without valuing yourself, you don't just pour love, you bleed it. And slowly, you begin to disappear in the name of devotion. That's why the final transformation is this: true love requires self-respect. Without it, even the purest giving turns into sacrifice that destroys you. Shetty once said, when you learn to respect yourself, you teach others how to respect you. Think about that. Every boundary you set, every standard you hold, every choice you make in love is a lesson you're teaching. If you respect yourself, others will rise to meet that level. If you don't, they'll take from you until nothing is left. Picture a man who gives endlessly to his partner. He cancels his dreams to support hers. He sacrifices his peace to protect her comfort. At first, it looks noble, but over time, resentment grows. He feels invisible, unappreciated, drained. Why? Because his giving had no anchor in self-respect. He gave not from abundance, but from desperation. His love became a slow erosion of who he was. Now contrast that with another man. He gives generously, but never at the cost of his own dignity. He supports his partner, but also honors his own purpose. He says yes with joy, but also says no with strength. His love is steady because it flows from a well that never runs dry. This is the power of self-respect. It makes love sustainable, not self-destructive. Jay reminds us, the way you love yourself is the way you teach others to love you. That means self-respect isn't optional. It's foundational. Without it, you settle for less. You tolerate disrespect. You cling to relationships that drain you. But with it, you create a filter that protects your heart. You no longer chase love. You attract it. You no longer beg for attention. You command it. And here's the paradox. The more you respect yourself, the more deeply you can love others. Because when you no longer need someone to prove your worth, you free them to be themselves. Your love becomes lighter, freer, truer. It's no longer about possession. It's about partnership. It's no longer about filling a void. It's about building a vision together. Imagine two people standing side by side, both whole, both aware, both rooted in self-respect. Their love doesn't suffocate. It breathes. Their bond doesn't shrink them. It expands them. They don't complete each other. They complement each other. That is unbreakable love. That is love built not on dependency, but on dignity. Jay once said, don't settle for someone who only sees the surface of you. Find someone who celebrates your depth. But here's the truth. You can't expect someone to celebrate your depth if you refuse to honor it yourself. Respect is what makes you magnetic to the right person and immune to the wrong ones. Without it, you'll keep falling for the same patterns, the same disappointments, the same heartbreaks dressed in new faces. But with it, you rise. You stop chasing love that drains you. You stop clinging to people who break you. You stop mistaking toxicity for passion. Instead, you begin to attract love that feels like peace, like partnership, like purpose. And that's the love worth waiting for. Here's the suspense that should linger in your heart. The number one relationship mistake isn't choosing the wrong person. It's waiting for someone else to love you the way you refuse to love yourself. Until you fix that, every relationship will crumble under the same weight. But when you respect yourself, when you hold your worth, when you build love from abundance and not emptiness, you'll never settle for fragile love again. So the challenge is this: stop begging for love. Stop lowering your standards to keep someone who was never meant to stay. Stop trading your dignity for temporary comfort. Start honoring yourself. Start respecting yourself. Start giving from fullness, not from fear. Because when you do, love transforms from a battlefield into a sanctuary. Shetty reminds us, real love begins with you. When you love and respect yourself, you become the example of love you want to experience. That is the transformation. That is the antidote to the number one relationship mistake. And if you dare to live it, not just hear it, not just post about it, but embody it, your future relationships will no longer be built on illusion, expectation, or desperation. They will be built on truth, respect, and strength. And that kind of love doesn't just last, it elevates.